How do you name what the problem of poverty is and what solutions might look like?
All right, that's a big question. So name one easy way to name it is just by the numbers, and about 38 million Americans are poor by official government standards. So 38 million Americans, that's like the population of Australia, just a huge number of people in the country. One in three of us are living in homes making $55,000 or less. So that's a lot of those folks aren't officially poor, but what else do you call it? Trying to raise two kids in Miami or Chicago on $50,000 or less. And so I think there's just a lot of poverty in America. Our child poverty rate is double what it is in Canada or Germany or South Korea. It's interesting, you go to Europe and they have a phrase, American style deprivation. So I think that just to set the table a little bit, we have to like just confront that the country just has a serious poverty problem for an advanced democracy this wealthy. And but poverty isn't just like income. Like the poet Layla Long Soldier once said, like that's just the oil on the surface of the water, right? Like poverty is just all these problems compiled, like one emergency after another, like debt collection on top of eviction, on top of you can't go to the dentist, your tooth is really hurting you, on top of not giving your kids enough to eat and they know it, on and on it goes. And for a long time, we've focused on the poor themselves, and we've asked like a million questions about their lives. And, what this book does is try to shift the aperture and says, look, if you want to know what it's like to live in poverty in America, you got to go and have those kind of conversations with folks that are enduring it. But if you want to know the fundamental causes of poverty, that's probably not where the answer is. And so there's this line I ran across by the novelist Tommy Orange, and he writes, these kids are jumping out of the windows of burning buildings, falling to their deaths, and we think the problem is that they're jumping. And so when I read that, I was like, oh man, that's like the American poverty debate. And so, this is a book that's not about the jumpers. This is a book that's about the fire. It's about how we continue to exploit the poor in the housing market, in the financial markets, in the labor market. It's about how many of us benefit from that exploitation in ways that we often aren't recognizing. It's about this imbalanced welfare state the United States has, where, especially if you count tax breaks, like we're really giving the most, the government is, to families that need it the least. And then we make up this story, about us not being able to afford to do more as a country, even when, we certainly could make deeper impacts in poverty if we just spent a little less guarding fortunes. And then it makes a third argument about segregation, about how we continue to be segregationists in our communities. Democrats are, Republicans are. We build walls around our neighborhoods. We hoard opportunities behind those walls. And there's a side effect, right? There's pockets of concentrated wealth, but the side effect is pockets of concentrated poverty. So that's the diagnosis, and the solution is to address those three things, to take on exploitation by expanding people's choice, by building power, in poor communities, to rebalance that safety net, through things like fair tax implementation that allows us to make deeper investments in any poverty. And finally, to tear down those walls, to finally be the generation that embraces broad prosperity and open communities. So there you go. That's the nutshell.
There is the whole book and just a little glimpse. I wonder if we might be able to make some connections here. David, in 2018, you started a group. You describe it as a social fabric project called Weave. I wonder if you might tell us a little bit about what Weave's about, and if you see any connections here to some of the things that Matt's talking about that are in Matt's book. And I'll also just highlight, the article you wrote in The Atlantic recently, which speaks to some economic gaps between the wealthy and the poor that are, equivalent or greater, to some of the racial gaps at the end of Jim Crow. Can you give us a sense of what Weave's about? Any connections you see with Matt's work?
Yeah, some connections. First, on the Atlantic piece, Matt mentioned the word segregation. That piece is about segregation along academic lines, and the fact that a kid who grows up in a family in the top 1% is 77 times more likely to go to an Ivy League school than a kid who grows up in a family making $40,000 or $50,000 a year. So those chasms are are caused by the way we've structured our educational system and the way we identify talent, and we do it in a way that the rich people can rig by investing in their kids. So that's one piece. The weave thing, it overlaps, but it's not one to one. And so if we're talking about poverty, the systems that Matt talked about are important. Money is important. The child tax credit really did work, and getting rid of it was a terrible thing, or at least reducing it. But Weave's little focus is on community. The fancy word is social capital. And where it overlaps is what we do is we figured social distrust is a chief problem in America. 2 generations ago, if you asked Americans, do you trust your neighbors? 60% said, yeah, I trust my neighbors. Now it's down to 30% and 19% of millennial. And without social trust, it's really hard to do community action. It's hard to do politics. People don't trust experts. They don't take vaccines. So how do you build social trust?
Hey, it's Scott here. Thanks for watching this Theology Lab video. If you're enjoying it, you can subscribe to the channel below and you'll get more Theology Lab videos as soon as they're released.
Well, social trust is built on the local level by people who are trustworthy in the course of their relationships. And so we take people who work in the neighborhood where they live, and they build community. And germane to this, I'll give you just 3 very quick examples. There's an organization called Thread in Baltimore, run by a woman named Sarah Heminger, and they surround thousands of underperforming kids in the Baltimore City schools with 4 volunteers who basically serve as extended family, and then 8 others serve as grandparents, 12 others who serve as collaborators. So they're building this intense social structure around these kids. And they basically work as extended family, like drive you to school, get you lunch, whatever. You need a new phone. And so it's that structure of relationships that they do. A second example, in Britain, I met a woman named Hilary Cottam, and she works on people in the British welfare state. There, she describes a one single family that had 74 contacts with different people in different agencies. And it was costing the government £350,000 a year. And they were never getting anybody out of poverty. And so what she does, she puts the people who are the recipient in charge and says, you pick a team. Out of all those 74 people who are allegedly helping you, pick a team of 8, and that team will work together under your direction for how you get out of poverty. And so again, it's a social network they're creating. Final example I'll give is a guy named Paul Bourne in Canada, and his belief was that poverty is different in every town. And so for any town to help and to lift those out of poverty, they need to get all the relevant players in the town together, 150 people, and make sure in every room, at least 40% of them are the people in poverty. And so they have these team networks, town by town, and they spend a year studying, and they spend a couple of years devising a strategy, and government money comes in, so there's money involved, but it's really about the building the team of how we're going to do this. And so in each of those little 3 examples, what Weave does is we focus on those who are building what networks of relationships and embedding people in trustworthy networks.